everybody. Welcome to our first podcast. This one's going to be me and Jamie, and it's going to be about social media and how that affects your mental health. I'll pass on to Jamie.
Yeah, so obviously this is our first podcast. We'll see how this goes. Me and Josh haven't recorded one of these before, but I'm really interested to talk about this topic, so hopefully you'll find it interesting as well.
Yeah, so I'll go on to our first slide. So I'm going to be talking about types of social media here. There's loads of different types. So we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. They all show quite a different side as well. Different users use platforms differently as well. But these are kind of the social media platforms that we'll be sort of talking about in this discussion. So this next bit, I'm going to be talking about positives and negatives of social media. I want to sort of make clear that I'm not trying to say that social media is completely bad and you shouldn't be using it, but to be just aware of the positives and negatives of social media. So we're going to go through these categories, and then me and Jamie are going to have a chat about certain categories that might pop out to us. So the first one I've got, it creates and maintains relationships. So you might make new friends on here, or you might meet up with old friends that you've never sort of seen before. So I don't know if Jamie's got any examples. I know he's been in America, he lived there for a while, so he might have some people that he's friends with on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah, so my family are quite spread out, my sort of wider family. We've got family in California, Australia. I used to live in New York. My brother used to live in all different parts of the States. So I think definitely it's brought my wider family closer together. And then obviously with what's going on at the moment, people who I live right next to, the only way to speak to them is on a video call or a phone call. So social media in that respect for right now has been really helpful in that respect.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's one of the massive positives at the moment. I think people will be struggling a lot more if social media wasn't around at the moment. So the next one is a wider audience to raise awareness about a wide range of topics. So I personally want to talk about this. I think quite a few years ago, before social media was around, stuff about mental health and just sort of well-being wasn't really talked about. And I think it's given us like an opportunity at the moment to talk about it. I think is a little bit more accepted. And obviously at the moment, we're obviously talking about a topic here that might not have been easily talked about in the past. I don't know if you've got one, Jamie, that you think one of the topics that maybe has become a lot bigger because of people using social media?
I feel like the environment and young people at the moment, I've never seen a bigger shift in sort of attitudes towards recycling and saving the ocean and looking after animals than what seems to be happening recently. So I feel like social media and just the internet in general is a huge contributing factor to that. I feel like young people know how to engage with the sort of wider conversation and rally support and around their ideas. So yeah, I think it's very positive in most respects, and it definitely seems to be this generation of young people that really are serious about making a big change in that respect.
Yeah. So go on to the next one. So I think that we've kind of covered this, but people might be feeling especially lonely at the moment, but it helps combat that fight against it. We're being able to do a video call right now just to talk to you guys. So I think it's been massive for sort of combating loneliness. This last one on the positive side normalizes help-seeking behavior. So when I talk about this, it's a little bit like how I was speaking earlier about people's mental health. If they're struggling, like they can see, especially on Twitter, if celebrities are talking about it, they sort of see that that's actually normal, and they're not alone with having like these like mental health issues. So it helps people go out and find organizations that give help, basically. Definitely.
I feel like this is an area where WhatsApp and Instagram and tagging people into things has become really normal. So I've got a bunch of friends who maybe when we speak to each other, we don't talk about mental health issues or looking after ourselves, but then they'll send a link to like a podcast or a video, and that's become really normal, that they'll share sort of ideas or feelings about mental health or mindfulness, or things that maybe a group of men might not have historically spoken about face to face. Social media is sort of taken away maybe some of the stigma around those kind of areas.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm going to go on to some of the negatives now, and I'll describe some of them as well. So a lot of reports have gone into this. There's a report at the end of this podcast that I'll talk about, where they found that social media is addictive. The reason for this is when you share stuff and you get likes, you get a release of dopamine, which is like a really good sort of feeling that you get in your brain. So when you first started on social media, you might have only wanted to get 10 likes. If you got 10 likes, you'd be buzzing. But as soon as that becomes normal, then you want to try and get more and more and more, and then it gets to a point where it's just like, oh well, if I don't get a certain amount of likes, like my post is rubbish or people don't like me and stuff like that. And I can put my hand up straight away. I feel like it's a little bit of an addiction if you wake up in the morning and the first thing that you do is check either your like Twitter or your Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that. That's a bit of an addiction, rather than just using it normally. But I personally do that, so I would say I have a bit of an addiction. Don't know about.
I feel like I've been able to break free of that slightly. I don't really post very much, so I don't really care about likes, but I definitely feel the addiction when it comes to YouTube or any sort of place where you share videos. So Instagram, maybe Facebook as well. And it's the fact that the next video is already ready to watch. And which it usually does because of the algorithms, is something interesting to me, I'll find myself just distracting myself with YouTube for 5 minutes, which then turns into 20 minutes, half an hour, especially if I was meant to be doing something that I didn't really want to do. So things like revision for young people, but tasks that we have to do at work can be very distracting. So I think addiction is a serious issue.
Yeah, no, definitely. The next one I think is massive, especially on Instagram and people like posting pictures, comparing our lives to others. So this has always happened throughout life. People have compared their lives to family members or friends. But with the introduction of social media, this has blown it out of proportion, because you are seeing people's best sides of their life constantly, and you're scrolling down on your phone and you're just seeing one after the other. And most of the time, people are trying to put up their good side of like, oh, I've gone on a holiday, oh, I've gone and done this, like this is really amazing, oh, look how like happy I am in my relationship. Where that might not be the case. And as soon as you start seeing that people are just having these like great lives, and then your life is not equaling their social media posts, then you start to like then feel down and feel like that your life is not where it should be.
Yeah, I think it kind of seems like the whole reason that Instagram exists is to show off. Even when people trying to show us something about their lives that's, I don't know, they've dropped their shopping, the way that they'll take the photo will be to show their huge driveway or their nice car, or there always seems to be something. So it's very difficult to avoid thinking, oh, look at the size of their garden, or look at whatever phone or watch that they've got. There's always something. So yeah, I definitely compare myself to my peers, particularly like you said with holidays and travel. Having a family now, it's quite difficult for us to go abroad very often. So when I see my friends without kids on these like fancy cruises, or yeah, people like Josh. Where'd you go on holiday, Josh?
Well, I went to Benidorm, but we won't talk about that, shall we?
You survived Benidorm.
But yeah, I can totally agree. And as well, just like filters on Instagram as well. People sort of just comparing their bodies and stuff like that, men and women, and thinking that they're not good enough, basically, which is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to start a little bit later, but obviously cyberbullying is a massive thing at the moment. I don't want to give away one of the stats, but I think you'll be shocked when we get to the end of the podcast about how many people have experienced some form of cyberbullying. It's really sort of interesting now that social media has sort of blown up a lot more than when I was at school, which was about 10 years ago. So you might have seen this. This is on the positive side, but it's also on the negative side as well. So yeah, we were talking about you do get a wide audience to talk about loads of topics, but it depends what those topics are. You could be spreading a lot of hate on social media, or just like topics that shouldn't be sort of talked about in like 2020.
Definitely.
So yeah, I don't know if you've got anything, Jamie, to add.
Just interestingly, recently with like cancel culture. So I'm sure most of you all have heard about what cancel culture is, but when a celebrity or someone who's prominent online either does something that people don't agree with, how quickly everything turns against them. So with a couple of cases recently, celebrities talking about coronavirus and maybe not taking it as seriously as everyone thinks they should be, and how quickly the sort of nice messages become angry and then threatening, and basically telling these people that their career is going to be over, all because of potentially one small mistake. So although it's probably ill-advised to have a strong opinion online because you may fall foul of this, I think people sometimes misspeak, or maybe they're not quite aware of the full situation. So how quickly they're sort of the world can come tumbling down around them online, it's kind of scary. So yeah, I think cancel culture and cyberbullying seem to be byproducts of this wide audience. Also, just some people who are purely online to abuse people and to look for opportunities. I think you need to be aware that not everyone out there is a genuinely nice person that's going to try and support your ideas. There will be people that just want to attack and tear you down.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think this is where you need to make sure that you're balancing your social media, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So fake news. I know Trump made this sort of quite viral, this sort of saying, but social media has become like the place where a lot of people get their news. But also people have taken advantage of this and the amount of news that is put up on social media because people are trying to be the fastest, and then but not maybe the most accurate, and then people just believe in some of the stuff. I'm sure at the moment there is a lot of fake news going around, where I think my advice would be, if you do see something that you've interested or engaged with, double check on that, see if you can find that anywhere else, and what is the source. Do you think it's a reliable source to be talking about it, before maybe you share it or you start talking to other people? Because you can look a little bit silly as well if you say, oh, this has happened, and then find out 5 minutes later that you've read something that's completely wrong, or you might even get the wrong sort of end of the stick.
Definitely. I think WhatsApp messages that people are forwarding at the moment is a good example of where you kind of need to check your facts before you hit forward. I generally don't share any of those because I feel like if there's an important announcement, it's going to come through the correct channels. So at the moment, the NHS website or a reputable news company. But yeah, if it's forwarded and it's by someone that you've not really heard of, it's very difficult to know where that originated and is it actually the correct information. There was recently a number of people in Iran who drank neat alcohol to try and get rid of the virus in their mouth, and it's actually sent a lot of people to the hospital with serious health conditions, all because they thought they were looking after themselves. And this originated from a WhatsApp message that was circulated in Iran. So yeah, it's scary how quickly fake news can take hold.
Yeah, definitely. So again, this is another one that's on the other side. I talked about it can help combat loneliness, but if you don't have face-to-face interactions with people, you can actually feel quite isolated and alone. So obviously at the moment, make sure that you're like talking to people in your household, having those discussions, and then okay, it's not the best, but try and have FaceTime or WhatsApp video like calls with people, because seeing people's faces and talking to them has actually been shown to like combat loneliness, where if you just texting or you're just messaging all the time, you're not being around people, you start to feel lonely, and then that turns into anxiety and depression and stuff like that. So but you can get caught up and just going through your social media and just letting sort of a bit of life go by.
Definitely. I'd add to that as well that text messages or anything that's written down, it's really difficult to decipher exactly what someone meant by it, and you can add your own spin. So I used to work as a youth worker with sort of college age young people around 16 to 19, and lots of them would be like, Jamie, look at this message, look, and they're being mean or throwing shade or whatever it was. And I'd look at the message, and the way I was reading it wasn't a big deal at all. But if you put your own spin on it in your mind and think, oh, this person is trying to be mean, then everything that they write sounds like they're being mean or ironic. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. Whereas when you're speaking to someone, it's much easier to work out if they're happy with you or sad with you or whatever the emotion is, or if they're showing empathy.
Yeah, no, definitely. So a big one, knowing who you're talking to. I think obviously Catfish, the TV show on MTV's shown this massively, but making sure that you are talking to the person that you are. It sounds a bit silly, but a lot of people this happens to. So just while you're online, making sure that it's definitely them, the people that you're talking to, basically.
I've got to stop, haven't I?
You do have to stop it. We should add that on to the end.
Yeah. I actually don't know how to stop it. Is it in the Here we go. Stop recording.